Hey guys, what's up? It's Russell again. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I do tons of different stock alert services, reviews. I do option services, long-term newsletter services like this one, and a whole bunch of other different stock and option related content. So yeah, make sure you subscribe. And let's get started on today's George Gilder report review. So this is a longer term newsletter. It's buy and hold, which is never as popular as a lot of the crackhead day trading stock stuff. But I do them anyway because they're usually very low cost, and often they're really overlooked, and they're something that you can just put a little bit of money in and just make passive income from over a year or 2 years, or even just like 6 months or a few months at a time. So my friend Mark has been reviewing a lot of these. He's been basically buying them, testing them out, and then writing reviews for me on stockalertsreview.com. So I haven't actually done any of these trades or buy and holds, but he has, so you can kind of get it from a real subscriber. So the George Gilder report is pretty interesting. I honestly hadn't heard much about this guy because I'm really not like a long-term investor. So apparently he's really well known, but I hadn't really heard of him much until Mark did this review. So he's known, for probably 50 years or something. It's something ridiculous. Like, he's been investing for 50 plus years. So this guy has more experience than many of these newer gurus all combined. So he is known for some of his books. So he has like 16 different books, all with interesting names like Life After Google and things like that. It's quite interesting. He's definitely a bit out there when it comes to different viewpoints of the future. So for example, he's very technology orientated, so you'll see a little bit when I talk a bit more about him in a few minutes. We'll go to his main page, the Gilder Technology Report, and you'll see his accolades are just ridiculous. So this is George Gilder here, him, but he's actually like 70 or 80 now, so it's a much older picture. But yeah, so he runs this newsletter, the Gilder Report, or the Gilder Technology Report, and just check out some of these qualifications. So first of all, he went to Harvard, he worked under Henry Kissinger. The interesting thing is he was like a political writer, I think, in his early days. Let's just check. He co-authored Political History. Yeah, so he wasn't, his background isn't finance, so it seems like it's more writing and politics. But check this out, he's done speechwriting for some of these guys, Richard Nixon, Nelson Rockefeller, Romney. It's pretty crazy. So he is also a really well-known author as well, but he's basically predicted some of the biggest technology changes that we've seen in the last 30 years. And I'll show you a few of them in a sec. Let's just glance through some of his other accolades here. Yeah, so like most of these guys that run their own publications, he's also written for all the major Forbes and Wall Street Journal and things like that as well. So yeah, so let's go back to my review here. I wrote down some of the main things. So it's $49 with a 6-month back guarantee, so that's pretty amazing. Whether 6 months is long enough for long-term investments to know how things are going or not, I'm not too sure. But still, it's unusual in this industry to have a 6-month back guarantee. So one of the things I wanted to cover, let me just find out. So this book is worth checking out. He's this advocate of the Cryptocosm, about how the blockchain is the total future of everything. So you might want to check out Life After Google. It seems like a really interesting, high-rated book. I haven't read it yet, but my plan is to go through it soon. So this is what George looks like these days. He's much older. Obviously, with 50 plus years investing experience, he's going to be a bit older. This is one of his biggest accolades here. Predicted the streaming boom and made a ton from Netflix and these types of streaming stuff, which is unusual for an older guy, right? They're not normally into technology and things like this, but he's obviously got a real knack for finding these things. So basically, the George Gilder report shares his ideas for different future technologies and things. I included a video here on some of the stuff he's talking about, which is really interesting. So, why subscribe to the George Gilder report? Well, mainly because of his stellar reputation, right? He's got, the backing of a lot of the big people in Silicon Valley For example, Peter Thiel, he is a huge advocate of George Gilder. So he's just basically a beast. Is basically the bottom line. And for $49 a year, following some of his investment reports and ideas is just a ridiculous value. So he talks a lot about this Cryptocosm stuff. It's basically calls it a radical reboot of the internet, where we're going to cryptography based stuff. So this is what he's saying about like the blockchain is basically the future, because the internet wasn't designed for all the payment processing that it's now, got such a big amount of payment processing and all this stuff, rather than just sharing information, that we're going to have to adapt to the blockchain in order to make these the most secure possible payments. So his sort of hypothesis is why the internet even needs to be restructured. So you might think it's just fine, but this was the problem. Like, we have so many of these things like logging into bank accounts and all this stuff that's really has to be like really much more secure than it currently is. So he talks a lot about that, how it's going to really undergo a huge transformation, and you can profit from that by buying some of the companies that are likely to be involved in that. So it's definitely something he's a huge advocate of. But most importantly, the George Gilder report, according to Mark, is just phenomenal in terms of performance. So he told me that there's 21 stocks in the portfolio on all these different sectors. So semiconductors, cloud storage, LiDAR, which I've been involved in developing in the past as my past life as a physicist. So he basically buys all these companies, and out of the 21, 20 of them are green, and the best performing stock is 210%, and the only one is only down 0.43. So that's a pretty ridiculous portfolio, which is really impressive. So yeah, so that's the George Gilder report. I think I'm looking forward to researching a bit more of this guy's ideas and things, because he seems like quite the visionary. So I think if you're interested in that kind of stuff and where technology could go and how to profit from it, you might enjoy the George Gilder report. So yeah, I think that's about all I want to say on it. Just research a bit more. Go and check out this George Gilder report review. I'll leave the link in the description below. You can go and watch some of his YouTube videos. Pretty interesting. So yeah, so thanks again for listening, guys, and I'll catch up with you in the next video. Cheers.